Wait, hold on. I got a cough. Sorry.
Cool. I'm glad I got both of those on recording. Hello, I'm Brady Pieper. Welcome back to the Pieper Sports Podcast. Today we have a special guest, and we are talking about NFL. Cleveland Browns, Baker Mayfield. We're talking about the Chiefs, and we're talking about the Giants. Let me introduce our wonderful, wonderful guest.
What's up, guys? I'm Aaron. I also run a podcast here at Met Media. I'm excited to talk about some football today, dude.
Go plug your podcast. Go for it.
Yeah, Coffin Corner on every Wednesday. We're actually recording later today. Give it a listen. It's on mymetmedia.com. It's me and another student. We kind of talk about everything. But yeah, give it a listen.
He's a professional, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we're going to talk about the Browns, obviously. I thought the Browns jersey would fit very, very well and kind of suit the theme that we shoot for today. Thank you. I've been working on it. So we're going to talk, is the Browns hype really up there? Should they be contenders? Should they be playoff hopefuls? Should they be the Browns?
Yeah, for me, I think I do believe it. I think the acquisitions they've got in the offseason, trades in the draft is, for me, I put them at, second round of the playoffs. That's how far I think they'll go next year. Right before the AFC Championship, I think. So
I have the Browns slated in at wild card.
So we're about the same.
Yeah, I have them there just because I feel like they have so much competition in the division. Nobody's really figured out the Ravens just yet. I mean, they did in the playoffs. It was Chargers figured them out in the playoffs. Yeah. But I don't think a regular season, very, very Robert Griffin-esque, but a little bit more athletic.
Who is on that team, by the way?
He is the backup quarterback of the Ravens. I feel like the Ravens have a good shot at taking the division. I think, obviously, the Steelers have the good shot at taking the division. It really just kind of fits in. What about the division?
Yeah, I mean, I think, if anybody's going to compete with them this year, it'll be the Ravens, just because you have Lamar Jackson showed that he can be a playmaker and whatnot. They got Mark Ingram, and then obviously you draft Marquise Brown. I think, for me, it depends on the development and cohesion of that offense, just because you have so many pieces that haven't really played together before. Hayden Hurst, the jury's still out on him. And then just kind of who's going to start on their line. But the defense, for me, I think will fall apart for them. I think they'll have to change from being a constant, we're a defensive grinding team to, all right, now we're a high-paced offense. So I think it's going to be a weird transition. But I think they're the only ones that can really compete. The Steelers just lost too much for me and didn't really replace it. I know the whole James Conner thing and Juju's there, but I think, Ben's getting older. They lost some linemen, and I don't think their defense is going to hold up as much as they have in the past.
My big thing with the Ravens is they lost C.J. Mosley.
Yeah.
They lost the anchor of that defense. They lost their Bobby Wagner, in lack of a better term. You lose a Mike linebacker like C.J. Mosley in free agency, you can't really replace him in-house. I mean, that's your captain in your defense. That's your guy right there. You lose a big piece like that, that team does not succeed at the same level that they did last year. That defense can fall apart. They still have pieces. They still have young pieces on that defense. But I think what it really comes down to is, will Lamar Jackson and that offensive run-around college-esque scheme really get knocked out? With the Steelers, Big Ben is getting older. We're well aware of that. Can Big Ben still produce at a high level, at an elite level, without Antonio Brown, without a real tight end, and without Le'Veon Bell? I mean, of course, James Conner kind of fit that role, but he's not that all-around back, I don't think. Can Juju really hold up? I mean, this is such a weak division, and kind of you can't really predict it, but we do our best to predict it.
Yeah, well, and I think, too, out of all those uncertainties, the one that will be the most certain is Juju. I think he's going to, be a top 10 receiver in the NFL. I really do. But I don't think it's enough. You know what I mean? So, we'll see. But, going back to the whole we went over the Ravens and the Steelers. Transitioning back to the Browns, I think that they're like the Ravens in the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty, cohesion, and stuff like that, but it's a little more certain, because you have people who've proved themselves in Odell Beckham, and obviously we'll see where the transition goes with Kareem Hunt. Obviously has to wait, but guys that have proved themselves as consistent players and or all pro players. You get Olivier Vernon, which I didn't like that trade just because I like Kevin Zeitler a lot, but you add to your pass rush. You get Sheldon Richardson, right? Like guys who have been in the league and produced, and then you just add more and more pieces to the whole thing. I think that, I do believe all the hype. I really do. I think, and I said this to you before, I think in the next 2 years, Baker Mayfield will win an MVP. Obviously, I think he has the talent of Brett Favre. I think, he has the swagger. He has the ability. I think all they had to do was surround him with the pieces, and you add Kareem Hunt and Odell Beckham and a great defense. I think he's going to thrive in that system. I really do.
I love Baker Mayfield. I bought this jersey the day after he got drafted number 1 overall. It was kind of that stretch at the time. Everybody was like, why didn't you draft Sam Darnold? Why didn't you draft a prototypical, large, kind of cold weather guy when you drafted somebody like Baker Mayfield, who's small, a little bit more mobile? You should draft a guy that's stronger, sturdier. But we look now and we see once Baker's really in that good scheme, that he really, really fits. I disagree with the MVP statements just because I think he can win Offensive Player of the Year. But I don't see him winning MVP over who's in the league right now. I still think that Patrick Mahomes is kind of slated for that MVP role this year as well, if Tyreek Hill returns. If not, then we can kind of wait and see.
Yeah.
But Baker Mayfield has a chance. I don't see him doing it. I think it's the balance of all the egos and all the talent on one team, putting the ball in the hands of the playmakers without making the other playmakers angry. I mean, that's kind of the balance in sports.
Yeah, well, and I agree. And, we've had teams in the past, and I understand that OBJ can be like that sometimes, but, we've had teams in the past where you've had 4 guys who make the Pro Bowl, and they're all position players. Look back at the greatest show on turf, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, right? You kind of have the same thing here, add in David Njoku and Antonio Callaway. But, I think Baker is that good that he knows, how to spread the ball out. And I think that's part of his game is he gets it to so many different people. It's hard as a defense to catch up on that. And now you just have better players to do that with. So, I think that if all goes right, it could be something like, Greatest Show on Turf 2.0. But we'll see.
You brought up earlier off camera the comparison of the Rams of last year and the Browns this year. The greatest show on turf. That's something that's very, very respected to say. If this team can hold that up, I mean, is there anything that can stop them? In my opinion, I don't think there is one way you can really attack the Browns unless you keep the ball out of Baker Mayfield's hands and ground and pound on that defense.
Yeah.
They have Myles Garrett. They have Olivier Vernon now. They drafted last year Denzel Ward and this year Greedy Williams. They obviously have 1 and 2 cornerbacks set. What can really stop this team?
And you forgot to mention, too, that they got Sheldon Richardson. But I do think, it is the coherency of the offense. I think if you leave it all up to Baker Mayfield to air it out, that can kind of backfire on you. I think, the cornerstone of this team's success, I believe, will be Nick Chubb. Almost having 1,000 yards as a rookie. He had to split time with Duke Johnson a lot, who is another guy we could talk about for an hour, and he's got to do it. Now he's the starter. There's no question about that until Kareem Hunt gets back. And I think, that added pressure of all right, you're the guy now, to go out and still produce and have that run game and open up the pass for Baker will be the key to their success. Also, and one other guy, what is his name? Austin Corbett. Filling in for Joel Bitonio, who was a long-time starting guard for them. Obviously, that's a little more minor. But just seeing how that offensive line and their new kind of shift will do for Baker Mayfield and protecting him.
Absolutely. I really do like the Browns. I bash them quite a bit just because they are really, really hyped, and I'm not a fan of really, really hyped teams.
I'm not usually either, but...
For me, I think this team really can make it far, but they have such a large amount of what-ifs, kind of who pans out, what's going to work well, that I just can't really predict this team very, very accurately this year.
Yeah, it's hard. And for me, obviously you have every team's got gaps, right? For me, the one thing they could also fix on defense is, putting one more guy on that defensive line, whether it be interior or a pass rusher. Just because, you got Ogunjobi, Sheldon Richardson on the inside, Myles Garrett, Olivier Vernon on the outside. It's probably a top 10 pass rush, maybe. But just adding one more kind of guy, outside linebacker, defensive end that can get to the passer. But a thing that I also think they did well is on the inside you have Joe Schobert and Christian Kirksey. I'd take that duo all day inside, and they're
great starters.
Yeah, and they also got Sione Takitaki in the 3rd round, and one of the steals of the draft, Mac Wilson, in the 4th round. So I think they definitely shored up, their linebacking core. And then obviously we know they have a great secondary with Denzel Ward, Greedy Williams, Morgan Burnett, and Demarius Randall. But the one kind of I don't know how Morgan Burnett's going to do this year. Getting a little older, being released. I think he's a solid starter. But Sheldrick Redwine also could be in play to start there. But honestly, those are the only weaknesses on that defense I see as well.
There are honestly very, very few weaknesses on this Browns team, which is what makes them so scary. We talked about it. You kind of mentioned it earlier. Is Baker Mayfield going to be compared to Brett Favre, or is the other gunslinger in the league, Patrick Mahomes, more slated and more deserving of the nickname, the Gunslinger?
Yeah, and this is, there's a lot to pick apart here, right? So you have, Patrick Mahomes, and I've told you this before, you have all these quarterbacks who eventually get to the point where they throw 50-plus touchdowns a year. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady eventually got there. Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns his first year as a starter. And that's the question is, right? He had a run game in Kareem Hunt. It's questionable if Tyreek Hill will return. If he can do that again, right, with Mecole Hardman, Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill, and
maybe Tyreek Hill,
whoever their running back is going to be, I think it's Damian Williams or Damian somebody, but if he can do that with other pieces around him, I love Baker, but I don't think you can. What can rival that? It's MVP caliber play every year is hard to compete with. But I will say that I do think, and I'm saying this right now on camera, so I guess I can't take it back, but I do think next year Baker will have a better stat line than Pat Mahomes.
I would agree, just because of the pieces around him. My one thing that I hold back with the Browns is coaching. Their coach, I think, is Freddie Kitchens right now.
Yeah.
He was the interim coach last year, and taking that full-time job this year. Can he lead this team to success, which he did last year, granted.
Offensively,
Offensively, he led this team very, very well, but you need that kind of higher-tier coaching. The thing with Patrick Mahomes is he has Andy Reid. You have the guy that coached Alex Smith. You have this guy that's coached teams that have made
Donovan McNabb,
that have run through the playoffs.
Yeah,
he's taught such a wide array of quarterbacks, and he's coached a wide array of teams that it kind of gives, I think, Patrick Mahomes that edge just because he can scheme him to have a better stat line. I still think Baker Mayfield will have a better stat line coming 2019, but there's a chance that Patrick Mahomes puts up similar, if not close to, than better numbers.
Well, and I think that will be what differentiates Patrick Mahomes as an MVP quarterback to a Hall of Fame quarterback. Because if he repeats what he did last year with different pieces, that's just something that you can't replicate, right? You can't duplicate. That's 1 in a million type quarterback. That's Peyton Manning type quarterback. You know what I mean? So if he can sustain it, and people said this throughout Peyton Manning's career, that he would make players better, right? Like Dallas Clark or Reggie Wayne or Joseph Adai even, right? And I think that if Pat does that, I think it'll be less of a Favre comparison and more of a Peyton comparison, because it's like, which is a great, there are very few quarterbacks that have ever been able to do that. I think he'll definitely have a better career than Baker, if that is true.
Absolutely. There's really the comparison for me. Just really, I love seeing his cannon. Both of them have cannons for arms. I think Patrick Mahomes definitely can throw it farther. I think there's a real good comparison between his arm and Josh Allen's arm.
Yeah.
Mahomes is obviously more accurate
a lot
than
more.
Josh
and
Allen.
Mobile. Yeah.
And mobile.
Yeah.
Can this Chiefs team repeat what they did last year, make it to the AFC Championship?
I think in this division, probably not, just because of how complete the Chargers are. I think the Chargers will be more sustainable than the Chiefs. And, they lost some guys. Obviously, you trade Dee Ford to the Niners, and you replace him with Frank Clark, giving up a first-rounder. But I think they kind of demoted the skill level sack number there. I don't think Frank Clark is as good as Dee Ford. I know you don't. I know you don't either.
I love the joke that they traded him just because he jumped offside.
I mean, shit, they might have, honestly. I don't understand it, because Dee Ford got paid less, right? And it's less of a talent. So we'll see. I don't think I put the Chiefs at 10-6 this year.
10-6 for a team that went 12-4 last year with the number one record.
Hey, it's hard to sustain
in the
AFC.
NFL, It is. It really is. This team, I feel like, could have had a better offseason. If they didn't trade away that first-round pick, they re-signed Dee Ford for a cheaper contract. They got rid of Eric Berry. They could have been in the running for Earl Thomas. They could have been in the running for some other guys. They are in kind of cap space hell now, which a few teams are. A few of these competing teams are really in cap space hell, with the exception of the Browns. But the Chiefs, they lost Steven Nelson, Eric Berry, Dee Ford, replace him with Tyrann Mathieu, Darren Lee, and Frank Clark.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not...
I don't think that they have the same level of talent the guys before had. I feel like they have a high ceiling.
And I always forget about the Tyrann Mathieu signing. I don't know why I keep forgetting about that. But I think that's definitely an upgrade from Eric Berry.
Oh, yeah.
Just for the simple fact of health, obviously.
It's definitely better when you have somebody that's healthy.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, they stayed kind of similar. Obviously, they love trading for former first-round linebackers. Their two starters are Darren Lee and Reggie Ragland. But I think it's all about the run game fall off for them. Imitating, recreating what Kareem Hunt did is going to be very difficult for them. And just, again, like you said, the whole not having a lot of money to spend thing is kind of screwing them at this point. So,
I feel like in this draft, they drafted McCole Hardman in the second round. He's a burner, kind of a small guy, 5'10", 187. But he is a burner. He's very, very Tyreek Hill-esque, and I say that a lot, but esque. It's just what he embodies. He's speed. He's a burner. He takes the top off the defense. Very, very much so.
Kind of like Sammy Watkins, almost. Maybe not to the extent.
A little bit more slotty with Sammy, I think. But, I feel like I don't like that pick if Tyreek Hill plays. Just because if Tyreek Hill plays, then you really can't develop this McCole Hardman into a slot guy.
Yeah,
unless
he's not a slot guy.
Yeah, like you can run him deep outs and slants and then a streak. That's really what you can do from a slot. Tyreek Hill's more of the slot receiver of the two, if I were to choose. But I don't like that pick very, very much.
Yeah. I also forgot to mention that obviously they lost Steven Nelson to the Steelers, but they did replace him with Brashad Breeland, who's I know he got cut last year. He was going to sign with the Panthers and then didn't. So, I mean, if he can, I don't think it'll be too hard to live up to Steven Nelson's production, but it's just the uncertainty of him not playing a lot. So we'll see with that. But yeah, I also think what you were saying with the whole Mecole Hardman thing, he needs to start on the outside, And if Tyreek is here, you have 3 guys who are the same receiver in a sense, right? Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill, and Mecole Hardman. Who do you put in the slot? You know what I mean? So it's just kind of, I don't know. It's a lot of uncertainty with the Chiefs, and then no run game now. So. We'll
yeah, that run game helped them out so much when Kareem Hunt was there and not, beating children. It was.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry, don't demonetize me, please. I need.
It wasn't children. It was a female actually.
With Tyreek or with.
Or no, I'm thinking of Kareem Hunt. Yeah.
Kareem. Yeah, Kareem Hunt was the.
Tyreek Hill is the kid. Chiefs players just are really not. Yeah, domestically pleasant. But
domestically pleasant. Speaking of domestically pleasant. Ezekiel Elliott. Just kidding.
No, yeah, right.
Did you see the video? Did you see the video of that?
I have not yet, no.
That video is essentially him kind of like putting his chest onto a guy. And like the metal barriers that are kind of like...
The ones that are like this high?
Yeah, they're the ones that are almost
poles,
like... Yeah, they're kind of the poles.
Like at festivals
they're easily pushed over.
Yeah.
The guy tripped over it. It was a security dude. So Ezekiel Elliott kind of put his chest on him. He didn't really push him. He just kind of like bodied him and he fell over. So that's why he got arrested.
Man.
So I'll give Ezekiel Elliott a pass because it's whatever. But man, Chiefs and Cowboys, the AFC NFC kind of comparisons there with
that is true
with
very
drama.
Very similar teams. Yeah, it's interesting. I just wish the season would start today.
No, I do too. I'm such
skip training camp, skip OTAs, skip the preseason, week 1. I want it now.
You know what? I want 32 weeks. 32-week regular season.
Yeah. Just make it like the NBA. Do 82. Fuck it.
Hey, you know what? Make the NFL 32 weeks. Expand the roster size to 90 players and just have rotations.
Yeah.
I'd
and
love
then
to see that.
just make a AAA too while you're at it. AAA NFL.
Oh yeah. Make a AAA. You know what? Give me this like JUCO AA type shit.
Yeah. I want to see Tim Tebow playing again. Let's do it. I guess we'll have the XFL. Right?
That doesn't count.
But I mean,
the AFL I had so much faith in. I had so much faith in it, and then I realized, oh wait, yeah, they don't know how to manage their money.
Yeah, and
I'm like, well,
yeah,
damn it, that sucks.
It probably was when that thing came out that the Hurricanes owner had to give him like $125 million. I was like, I don't think this is gonna work.
Well, here's the thing: he didn't give him the money.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He gave him he had a contract with him, obviously, where he got ownership, right?
Yeah.
He gave them a little bit of money, but not enough to support them. Because if he gave him the $100 million, then they would have made it through the year. But they didn't. And then there's all the drama with the lawsuits going on. Obviously, people getting sued because you need to, if your business is shutting down, you need to notify your employees ahead of time.
Yeah.
They're like, you need to give us 60 days notice. It's like, well, we didn't exist 60 days ago. So
yeah. What are you gonna do?
All the drama. Speaking of drama, New York Giants. Kind of, we kind of have this loose little link between the teams we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Players traded from this team going to this team. Comparisons of Brett Favre with Mahomes and Mayfield.
Yeah.
Now we're going to Odell Beckham's original home.
Yeah.
What's with the Giants?
Dave Gettleman is either going to be fired in the next couple years or go down as one of the greatest GMs of all time. And it's only one of the two.
I have a feeling I know which one it's really going to be, but continue.
Yeah, well, and what did they, their draft was bad, right? The only guy I liked that they drafted was O'Shane Jimenez in the 3rd round just because, he was supposed to go in the 2nd and they got a steal. Other than that,
everybody bashes on Daniel Jones. I get it. You could have got him later. You could have got him at 17. I like the Dexter Lawrence pick just because he replaces Snacks. He replaces Damon Harrison. Or Damon Harrison. Damon Harrison. Yeah, they replaced their big run stopper with a big run stopper. DeAndre Baker was kind of that pick to me. Yeah, they needed a corner because the Jackrabbits getting older.
I just don't think they should have traded up to get a corner in the 1st round. Yeah, obviously the talent falls off, but I think it was a reach for DeAndre Baker.
No, you're right. I mean, there was a lot of corners in this draft. There were not many top talent. There weren't many Denzel Wards, quote unquote Denzel Wards in this draft. But okay, you want to...
If you look at the second round, though, Byron Murphy went in the second round. Greedy Williams went in the second round. You know
Exactly.
what I mean?
I think Greedy Williams is probably the best corner in this draft.
I
just
agree.
because of his long lengthiness. Patriots drafted Juwan Williams, which I really, really like.
Was he
just
from
because he's
Vandy?
he's 6...
He went to Vandy?
Yeah, Vanderbilt. And just because he's 6'4", he's lanky, and he has ball skills. He's fast and tall and lanky. That's all you really need with a good kind of lockdown corner. DeAndre Baker, I don't feel like was the best corner in this draft.
No, definitely not. Well, and to give up stuff to get him, I just don't think it was worth it. And then more off-season stuff, like giving Sterling Shepard the extension, I understand that. Signing Golden Tate right after you trade Odell Beckham was kind of underwhelming to me. I just, he's kind of a journeyman receiver, and just it doesn't match. It's a clear there's a fall off between Golden Tate and Odell Beckham.
No,
and when you look at their roster, it's not bad. Obviously, you have Saquon Barkley, who's going to be the best running back in the NFL. Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram. Just it's very. We're signing people to be mediocre. You know what I mean?
You know
defense.
What really frustrates me with the Giants is the fact that, okay, you're going to trade up into the first round, grab DeAndre Baker. In the fourth round, you pick up Julian Love.
Who's a good cornerback.
Who's a good guy.
Yeah.
He kind of fell in this. I thought he was going to go mid-third, but he ends up falling to the fourth. What also kind of frustrates me, okay, if you're going to go sign big free agents when you should be tanking, you could have got compensatory picks if you waited long enough. Like if you waited to sign Golden Tate, or if you waited to trade for Jabril Peppers, then you would have got compensation for that.
Yeah.
You lose out on these big time players, and you would get compensated otherwise.
Yeah.
And it frustrates me.
The only good move I think that they made all offseason, and I said this about the Browns too because I didn't like this trade, was getting rid of Olivier Vernon for Kevin Zeitler and kind of shoring up that offensive line, which is important now because I think they just lost Nate Solder. I know he just got hurt, but
not Nate Solder,
I know.
Former Patriot, you say?
Yeah, I know. Well, and I honestly too had more hope for Will Hernandez. I thought he was the steal of the draft last year. That guard they drafted, and he played terrible all year. Granted, he's a rookie and he's a guard, so there's always room to improve, but he definitely did not do as well as I thought he would do.
You're completely correct. You're right. Dave Gettleman, I don't really see the future that he's looking at right now.
I don't either.
Because if you want to rebuild, you kind of give up everything and you get picks and you let it flow.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, okay, you sign or you draft these players. You sign Golden Tate. That's not a sign of rebuilding.
4 years.
Yeah, like he's an old receiver who's good, but like why spend that money on him?
I'm like, I get it. Okay, you draft a quarterback. Let's put some receivers around him. Let's sign Golden Tate to a 2-year, $22 million contract. Just get something out there for him, just so you can field some real receivers and you don't stunt the growth of Daniel Jones. By the way, Nate Solder is likely out until training camp following ankle surgery.
Okay,
so he'll
be
be
there. All right,
he's not gone. He's just limited.
I mean, if they lost
in
him,
action.
they'd be really screwed. But I don't get the direction either. When they signed Golden Tate, I assumed, okay, well, they're probably going to take somebody like Josh Allen in the draft, not a quarterback at 6. So it's just like, we're not rebuilding. We want to get better, but we're rebuilding. But we're kind of doing both, which is every time that happens, it crashes and burns, right? It's you can't do both at the same time. You know what I mean? Ask the Browns.
Let's just say, if you were sitting at 6, okay? If you're sitting at 6, I'm gonna read to you the players that got picked after 6. Josh Allen, T.J. Hawkinson, who I love. He's not the next Gronkowski, but he's definitely up there.
Not that I would have drafted tight end as the Giants, because they have Evan Ingram, but still better than what they did. Yeah.
Players available, best players available. He'd fit that role.
Yeah.
Ed Oliver, who's arguably the steal of the draft this year. Devin Bush, Jonah Williams, Then Rashawn Gary, not so much. I'm not a fan of Rashawn Gary.
I think he's going to win
from
Defensive
there,
Rookie of the Year,
Jonah
but
Williams, Devin Bush, Ed Oliver, Hawkinson, Josh Allen.
everything except tight end is a need of theirs. Pass rush, they traded away their best one. Ed Oliver, I mean, their best before they drafted Dexter Lawrence, their best defensive tackle is Dalvin Tomlinson, who's a starter, I guess, but nothing special. And then Devin Bush. Do you know who their inside linebackers are?
For the Giants? No, but
yeah,
I can
exactly.
Look.
That's what I'm saying is like
like,
Devin Bush would have been a great pick there, right after Devin White, you know.
Or like Jonah Williams. I would have, if you picked Titus Howard. Everybody bashed the Texans for picking Titus Howard. If you were picking Titus Howard that early in the draft, I would still be like, it fits a need.
At least they did something they needed.
Exactly.
And that's the thing is like I get the whole franchise quarterback thing. If it would have been anybody else but Daniel Jones, I think we wouldn't be having this conversation. But they just passed on so many. It was a generational defensive draft, right? They just passed on so many guys that like you have multiple holes to choose from. You know what I mean? Like multiple guys and you pick Daniel Jones. The direction I don't get it. I'm really happy I'm not a Giants fan.
You know, I'm not a fan of many New York teams. This is one of the teams I'm happy I'm not a fan of. You have 10 picks in the 2019 NFL draft. You pick 3 offensive players. Daniel Jones, Darius Slayton in the 5th round, and tackle George Asafeo. Other last name that I don't want to pronounce because I feel like I'll butcher it. But in the 7th round. So you draft a 1st round offensive player and then 2 5th and 7th round offensive players. When the other guys you pick are all kind of like, O'Shane Zimenez in the 3rd round.
That was my favorite pick of theirs. Just because he's a really good pass rusher, and I think they need that. I think he'll start for them. And he was supposed to go a lot earlier. I think it was just the fact that he went to a Old Dominion University, so it was like a little school. But the thing that kind of resonates with me, you know, you have this Eli Manning era where they win all these Super Bowls and they're underdogs. And, you know, I remember Jeremy Shockey was a badass and they had Tiki Barber and Michael Strahan. They're not the team in New York anymore.
No.
The Jets are the team in New York now. The Jets have a lot of similar questions surrounding them that the Cleveland Browns do.
Will this quarterback pan out? Will all these kind of free agent signings / trades really fit?
Yeah.
You know, under the helm of Josh Allen, not the defensive end, but the quarterback
Sam Darnold.
Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
I'm thinking AFC East.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, you got 3 quarterbacks from last year's 1st round in that division now.
Yeah.
So I get why you could be confused.
But Sam Darnold, if you're the Giants or if you're the Jets, Sam Darnold, C.J. Mosley, Le'Veon Bell. That kind of headlines your team going into next year. And if you're the Jets, you really are kind of this you're beating out the East Rutherford, New Jersey folk.
Yeah, well, and we were talking about the Browns earlier, and I said, you know, the only move they made, right, that I didn't like was the Kevin Zeitler trade. There were no moves that the Jets made that I really didn't like. You add Le'Veon Bell. You sign Jamison Crowder, which for me, not a game-changing receiver, but a solid starter. You trade for Kelechi Osemele, which is a 6th round pick for a guy who is on the cusp of being a Pro Bowler.
Career starter, birth of Pro Bowl potential.
Yeah, exactly. And then you sign C.J. Mosley, and then to cap it all off, right, everyone said that they were going to trade that pick. And then you draft Quinnen Williams, who is still there at, what was it, 3 or 4? And Gerald, I almost said Gerald McCoy. Quinnen Williams, to me, is the very similar to Warren Sapp. I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Fame defensive tackle, but that just like solidifies that.
He has a high ceiling. He's one of the best players in the draft.
On a defense that's already good now. I mean, you have Leonard Williams, right? Jamal Adams. You add C.J. Mosley. You add Quinnen Williams. And then you have Marcus May and Trumaine Johnson in that secondary.
That defense scares me. You know, the real only question for me is that offense. Can Sam Darnold really kick in? Can their receiving core and tight ends really do much? Can Le'Veon Bell come back after a season and play up to the money that they paid him? Not as much as the Steelers would have paid him last year.
Yeah.
But can you really, perform on offense. Because, you can lock somebody down on defense and it can carry you as far as it can, but...
Yeah. Well, and I think, the guys that they had that were productive last year, I think having Le'Veon there, because who was their best running back last year? It was Isaiah Crowell.
Yeah.
If Le'Veon can be that all-pro running back, it not only opens up room for, Jamison Crowder to do well, it opens up, room for people like Quincy Enunwa, who is probably one of their most productive players. It opens up room for Robbie Anderson, who had an off year last year, who's shown that he can be productive.
The big question with them is, can either of them step up, be the number one receiver? And having a all-pro running back can really, really help the development of a quarterback.
Yeah, and shoring up the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean,
what else?
Sam Darnold has the potential. Not saying he will, but he has the potential of being an MVP sometime in his career.
Yeah, I think
he has a. I feel like he has a very, very high Matt Ryan-esque.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Arc.
Yeah. Well, and Baker Mayfield, that whole draft class, honestly, could be similar to the John Elway draft class when it's all said and done. I think out of those 4 guys, Josh Rosen is in the shittiest kind of situation.
Not that he's a shitty quarterback.
Exactly. And I would have loved if Denver would have traded for him, being a Denver fan. But then Baker, we say, oh, they added all these pieces, right? The Jets added all these pieces. The Bills added a bunch of pieces. People, it's easy to forget Josh Allen because he plays in Buffalo. And, a lot of these guys weren't, they didn't sign Le'Veon Bell or they didn't trade for Odell Beckham. But if you look at it, drafted Cody Ford, right? Who, in my opinion, when it's all said and done, will be the best offensive lineman in this draft. You add Cole Beasley, John Brown. Who else did they add? Quentin Spain, Mitch Morse, and Ty Nsekhe. And Tyler Kroft. That's like 7 people that you've upgraded your offense with. And you have, in my opinion, probably the best offensive line in that division. Obviously you beat out the Dolphins. You beat out...
I'd say behind the Patriots, because the Patriots, they re-signed Shaq Mason.
They got rid of Trent Brown.
They did get rid of Trent Brown, but they drafted last year Isaiah Wynn to kind of fit that role. He's more of a guard type, but they're going to push him out to left tackle. Marcus Cannon, Shaq Mason, Isaiah Wynn, David Andrews, one of the best centers in the game, and Joe Tooney, one of the best young guards in the game. So I'd say they're probably second behind the Patriots, but they definitely have probably upper tier in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, and I do love that guard he's from Georgia, right?
Which one?
Isaiah Wynn. Yeah, he's a first-round pick out of Georgia.
He was a first-round pick with Sony Michel.
My thing is with that, and I would say if he hadn't got hurt, and he would have started all year, even if he would have done bad, yes, he would be above the Bills in that offensive line thing. But then I look at a guy, I love very niche linemen. If you look at Dan Feeney, right, from the Chargers drafted, I think it's kind of the similar thing. He was highly touted, got injured, and I think he will be average. But, I can say whatever I want. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. But I going back to the original thing is they right, you have Josh Allen start in this environment for the Bills last year where you have a aging LaShawn McCoy and Kelvin Benjamin to start the season and Charles Clay. And you just add so many more, you add protection and you add weapons, right? And I think that when we look back in 30 years, when we are still doing this podcast, but we're famous, I really do
and
think
we make money off
Yeah, exactly. I think it will be the Jim Kelly, Dan Marino, John Elway type class, pending Josh Rosen. But we'll see. I don't know. I like how we're talking about the Browns and eventually we started talking about the quarterback trifecta.
Yeah, but I feel like this year is going to be such a breakout year for a few quarterbacks. So I feel like it's important to talk about all these young quarterbacks, all these kind of aging teams with, the Giants. I feel like talking about Rosen, Josh Allen, talking about Darnold, talking about Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield, and Patrick Mahomes is really, really important. And as I say that, we're going to bring this long podcast to a close, twice the length we anticipated, but twice the content we provide. All I'd like to thank you for your time on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give you the
Anytime.
opportunity to plug it again. Go ahead.
Yeah, Coffin Corner. Actually, recording right after this, 3 o'clock. Episode 7 will be out. We're covering some NFL stuff, too. A little NBA. But yeah, give it a listen. It's a great pod.
It is. I've listened to it a few times. They do great stuff over there. And if you would like to support us, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification after you do so. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope Aaron has a wonderful rest of his.
Thanks, man.
And we'll be seeing you next time.
Not as good of a passer as them, but he's still not a bad one. Honestly, dude, looking at their roster, too, it's not that bad.
It's
Like,
not. No.
They need another receiver who they drafted, Marquise Brown, but Ronnie Stanley, Marshall Yanda, Orlando Brown on that line. Nick Boyle and Hayden Hurst and Mark Andrews, the tight end.
Nick Boyle was the other one. They signed him.
Yeah, but Hayden Hurst, Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson, and then you got Mark Ingram. Not bad.
I don't like the Mark Ingram signing.
I don't think he'll go for 1,000 yards, but think too, like Gus Bradley not Gus Bradley. Yeah, the coach for the Seahawks had a lot of rushing yards. Gus, the Gus guy, the running back for them that like at the end of the season had like all these fucking like 100-yard games.
Gus
Edwards,
yep.
Yeah. But then like their defense isn't bad either. Chris Wormley, he's okay. Brandon Williams, okay. Tyus Bowser, Patrick Onwuasor, who's good. Matt Judon, Tony Jefferson, Earl Thomas, Jimmy Smith, Marlon Humphrey. They did lose a lot of people though.
They lost a lot.
Zadarius,
but like
Terrell Suggs.
They still can succeed.
Yeah, they're not bad.
You know, I called the Cardinals signing Terrell Suggs a professional courtesy because they're not going to succeed. They just kind of signed him like, yeah, here's $7 million.
Like, hey, come end your career on a big contract, and you don't have to worry about winning.
Hey, here's 1 year. Here's $7 million. You don't have to do anything.
I think the reason they did it is because he went to Arizona State, so he's like from Arizona.
Did he?
Yep.
Wow.
Look it up, dude.
It's more than a professional.
I got it all in here. I think though, like their linebacking core isn't bad. Tyus Bowser, Patrick Onwuasor, who's good, and Matt Judon, who's like pretty good.
Who was the guy? It was a linebacker for them that retired. I want to say last season, like at the beginning of last season. He was he had a really, really good year, and he retired like his second year. Do you know who I'm talking about? Yeah, no, there was somebody that got...
A Ravens player? I remember the guy from the 49ers who retired super early.
Ravens linebacker that retired.
Not Tyus Bowser.
Zach Orr.
Oh, yeah, he was okay.
Yeah, due to a neck injury.
Do you remember the guy for the 49ers who was like a third... Borland. Chris Borland. He had like 130 tackles his rookie year, then retired his second year.
I've noticed that more and more. Like, you don't see it too frequently, but like...
Yeah, look up Chris Borland, dude.
Chris Borland.